Hi, this is Zach with Worn&Wound. Today we'll be taking a look at the Khaki Navy Pioneer Automatic. This watch was first unveiled in 2012 at Basel World alongside of a special edition version of this watch. Both are based on marine chronometers, and the special edition was this large 46mm watch with a hand-wound movement that came with also a special box that really mimicked what the watch or a deck watch would look like. So it had this gimbaled box and things like that. And it was a limited edition. I think they sold out a long time ago. But they also created this kind of open edition that is a smaller watch that it's a little bit more of just kind of a refined dress watch, but it is in that marine chronometer style. It also uses an automatic movement, as the name implies, specifically an ETA 2895. It's a very elegant watch that kind of has a unique style, I think, especially for Hamilton with these wired lugs, things like that. It's really kind of a beautiful, elegant, dress watch, but it has some kind of masculine qualities to it as well. This one retails for $1,095, comes in 3 different colorways. Here we have this pale silver. So let's take a closer look now. The case of the Khaki Navy Pioneer has a very interesting design that kind of speaks to marine chronometers in that it appears to be, like a clock that has been mounted to wire lugs, something like that, just to give it a little bit different feeling than like specifically a watch. And they do an interesting thing with both the wire lugs and the actual construction of the case. The diameter of it is 40 millimeters with a 46mm lug to lug, though it really kind of wears like a lugless watch because the wire lugs are so thin. It is then very thin at only 10 millimeters, which is quite nice. The design is really interesting. So it has this kind of cylindrical design from the top, but there's a lot more going on. From the side, you can see the bezel here has this nice studded texture to it, which is really quite pleasant. And then coming from the bottom, there's actually a little bit of a lip up. So the side of the case, like the case bottom, is a narrower diameter than the bezel, and you have this little bit of a ridge here. The lugs then are actually attached to the case back. So they kind of slide in and pop in. So you have this definite feeling of like a module that's plugged into the wire lugs. And I think that just kind of tells the story, and as well as just a really, really nice detail that gives you all these little fun little moments around the watch that just make it a much nicer and more interesting watch without anything being it's ostentatious or flashy or anything like that. It's just really kind of an industrial, constructive look, yet on a watch that's very refined and elegant. The case top obviously is polished. Then you have this really nice texture here. The brushing on the side, very satin, very clean. I think it all looks really, really nice. Very nice finishing. I think Hamilton does nice finishing all around, but this might be a little bit nicer than even typical. At 3 o'clock, you have this nice little crown here. The watch is hand windable, though it is automatic as well. It's about 6.5 in diameter by about 3.5 tall, so it's more of a wide, thin style, which I think works really, really well with this. Once again, flipping the watch over, you have a display window here showing the 2895 automatic movement. Not very decorated, mostly on the rotor here, just as Hamilton, 27 jewels, etc., etc. Then around that, various details about the watch, as well as the screws holding it together. Like I said, what I think is really nice about this watch is that it's elegant and yet has this kind of utilitarian sense to it, so you do get a bit of the story of the marine chronometer there. The dial of the Khaki Navy Pioneer, still speaks to these deck watches or deck clocks from the 40s from naval vessels. It has a very nice, clean design that I think there's something bold about it, yet clearly very classic and very dress and elegant. It's a very calm watch that has still a nice masculine look to it. So, it's just a very, very pleasant design. The primary index here is of, large Arabic numerals. It's a very nice font, and it's like a gloss black with like nice little flourishes on the serifs. It's just a really elegant font. Around that is a little bit of a is a minute track index that has kind of a railroad design. It's small, but it definitely helps with reading. And then on the chapter ring here, you just have double-digit minutes or second. Well, actually just minutes, because obviously there's sub-seconds there. Then looking in above 6, you do have this sub-second dial, and there's a couple of interesting things going on here. You just have kind of a denser dial with all of the markings in there, numerals every 10, and that has a concentric circle kind of graining to it. So you end up with this nice contrast of textures between the main dial, which is like a matte silver, and then that which is more of a sunburst silver. So it also looks a lot darker, whereas the dial can almost look white it's really like a pale silver. That definitely has a very metallic look to it. And I really, really like that contrast. I think it's a nice little focal point on the dial, and it just, it just looks very cool, kind of a little bit industrial looking, which I think works very well with the watch. I'm going to quickly adjust the time again here. At 3 o'clock, just off of 3 o'clock, you do have a date window, the black text on white date. Once again, the date window, a little bit obtrusive to the design, but not so bad. I think especially because it's, fairly pale silver, so the white doesn't stand out on that too much. Maybe a 6 o'clock date would have been nice, but then it would have cut in at with the subdial there. Looking at the hands now, you have these beautiful blue steeled hands, very, very elegant forms, definitely also speaking to the early 20th century. The hour hand here has this kind of flared shape at the tip, whereas the minute hand is more of a kind of a sword shape. But they're very elegant, yet not over the top and ostentatious. And then the second hand here, also similar. It's this little stick with a little bit of like a cool little almost spade shape on the back of it as a little counterweight. Overall, just beautifully executed. This watch also comes in a couple different colors. So silver, there's a beautiful blue, and there's also a dark black. I think the silver, though, is kind of a nice classic color, especially for a watch this style. On the wrist, the Khaki Navy Pioneer wears just exceptionally well. I'd go so far as to say it might be one of the nicer wearing watches I've ever tried on. I think just little things are coming together here to just make a really, really comfortable and great looking watch on the wrist. Largely the 40mm diameter with this sort of wire lug shape, that alone is very interesting because it makes it feel, I think, a little bit smaller than 40mm, so you get a little bit more of a dressy vibe from this watch, yet it is 40mm, so it has a nice impact. And watches of this variety, marine chronometers, are usually, or deck watches, are usually quite a bit larger, especially ones with manual wound movements, even getting up to 44, 46mm. So having this style in a 40 rather, is quite rare, and I think it works really, really well. And then the wired lugs, they're very thin wired lugs, so there's a lot of space around the watch, which I think just makes it look really, really nice. Yeah, I mean, I think this watch also, it's a dress watch, but it works really with a lot of different clothing. I think there's something kind of strong about it. This isn't a particularly fancy shirt. It's kind of like a hard-wearing material, and I think this works really, really nicely with it, especially on this very heavy leather strap that they put it on. It has a 20mm lug here within the wire, and it comes on this strap that is also just an incredible strap, very different from what we've seen from Hamilton before. And it might not look like anything special right now, but it's actually an extremely rigid bridle leather, I think, that it just has a very different feeling from other leathers. I mean, it was very, very stiff. Honestly, I was almost surprised how stiff it was, but it's broken in nicely, and it just feels like this really rich, beautiful piece of leather now. So I think that just kind of adds to the masculinity of this watch, and just such a cool look. And the brown here works really, really well with a little bit of highlights from the blue as well as the silver. Overall, this is just, I think just such a handsome watch and just a really terrific package from Hamilton. To wrap up, I think the Khaki Navy Pioneer is just a very, very successful watch that's a pleasure to wear. I wish I had more negative to say about it, but frankly, wearing it was great. I think it's very, very well made, very well executed. Even, like I said before, it might even be better executed than other Hamiltons we've seen. And at the price of $10.95, which granted isn't, cheap, and that's it as an MSRP, so you could probably find it for a little less than that. It's really just a killer watch with great styling and a lot of kind of unique little features, the wire lugs, the way it's assembled, that'll just keep you coming back to it. And I think for a marine style watch, which not everyone's going to be a fan of, I personally am a big fan of, there aren't a ton of options out there, and this is a really well sized one with a really nice automatic movement in it, so it's just actually very unique in the market. So yeah, please read the full review on Worn&Wound. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Tumblr. Thank you.